And then it was unschooling. And I kept hearing the blanket statement, oh, just like trust the process. I'm like, but how can I trust this process when I don't even know what my boundaries are? I don't even know what my needs are. I don't even know how different my children were from me. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Unschooling Lifestyle. Today, I wanted to bring a few sentences from the book Untigering by Iris Chen. And the subtitle of the book is Peaceful Parenting for the Deconstructing Tiger Parent. Now, being a tiger parent, it's a whole different conversation because I have often said I was on that path. And when we transitioned into homeschooling, I was tiger parent, homeschool edition. So unschooling came to me as a philosophy to rewrite the story on that. What I wanted to share today is that she writes, peaceful parenting aims for equity, not equality. And then she goes on to say, equality means everyone is treated the same, but equity means that everyone is given the support and empowerment they need to thrive. And that I like to expand a little bit upon because when we transition into unschooling, so here I was homeschooling Tiger Mom edition, it was my way or the highway, right? And I was upset because they didn't want to do my worksheets and my schedule and blah, blah, blah. So here comes unschooling with this like philosophy of just trust the process, right? So, but what happens and what happened to me is that I went from having all the control to giving all the control and decision making to my children. So therefore, if they didn't want to do anything, I wouldn't do it either, even though I wanted to. But there was still an imbalance of I don't want to say power, but I want to say decision making. There was an imbalance of decision making. And then I was exhausted. So here I was reading about self-directed education, about play and how play was important and how they should do it and how they should lead and how children, by being self-directed, that they needed to do every step, like everything in the process of, for example, if they wanted to know about money, that they needed to do the research, that they needed to provide me with ideas for field trips, and that they needed to play with money, you know, whether it was fake or real, and ask the questions. So here I was at the mercy of my children. And needless to say, I was exhausted. So I really believe this is one of the pitfalls that unschooling kind of brings about into families because we come from a system that does not trust ourselves, and therefore we don't trust our children. So when you switch into unschooling, we are asked to do something that we have never known. So we kind of like in this way, we are kind of creating this narrative in our heads that they are supposed to run the show. And the reality is that that's not true. So here is why when I found human design, I felt seen in a way that I had not felt seen before because he gave me the tools to realize what I needed as a parent. And then Iris goes on to describe a little bit of what her peaceful parenting means, which is we look for win-win solutions instead of ones that only benefit one party. And that is something that I was able to access through human design because I knew that my creative time is important. So I needed to set the boundaries that could benefit that side of me so I could also be there for my children. And then it says we respect our child's boundaries as well as our own. I feel like I just covered that. And then it says we are willing to negotiate, compromise, and be flexible. This goes on both sides of the equation. So one of the things that I love to do is that we have a group on Fridays that we meet up with. And I absolutely love the ambiance and the philosophy, and I love talking to the parents there, but sometimes my children do not want to go. And if I have options for them to stay, let's say it is with my parents or with my partner, we talk about what the options are and then they get to decide. But there is compromise in the sense that I am honest about why I want to be there. And then I am honest with them as to say, these are the options. What do you want to do? And sometimes there hasn't been an option, so they have to go. And they eventually have a good time, but they initially say, well, we don't have a choice. And I'm like, well, this is why this is happening. So there's not one person winning all the time, then there's not one person losing all the time. We're always meeting in the middle. And I feel like when I started unschooling, I didn't know that there was a middle. Like it was like my way of doing homeschooling, Tiger Parent Edition. And then it was unschooling, and it was like relinquishing all types of decision making to the children. And that was not, and then I kept hearing, the blanket statement, just like trust the process. I'm like, but how can I trust this process when I don't even know what my boundaries are? I don't even know what my needs are. I don't even know how different my children were from me. Human design kind of helped me create that middle for me. The next point that she talks about, he says, we value the thoughts, opinions, and feelings of each individual, not just of those who hold the most power in the family. Again, it's just about everyone has the right to say no. Everyone has the right to ask a question, to say I'm not ready, and to say I don't feel good today, to say I don't want to go outside today. It's totally okay. And if we think about it, we value that in adults, right? Because we value the person that knew it didn't feel good in a job and all of a sudden they quit and they move on to something better. So we're like, good for you. So it should be the same with children and families. Like we're all in this ecosystem together. And then the last point that she makes on that, he says, we'll love and care for each other as we look out for each other's best interest. And this is so true. Something that I have found really, really interesting, the more time we spend together, it's like we are a cohesive unit that asks for help when it's needed. And then slowly I have noticed that when my kids kind of see me, like whether it's struggling with a bag or something or the door, like we're leaving and they usually hold the door for me so I can lock the front door. So there's very little things that to me are showing me that they are caring about the environment and the people that they spend most of their time there. So they are very courteous, they have asked if I'm okay. So in human design, I have an emotional authority. So that emotional authority goes like a friggin' roller coaster. It goes up and down like nobody's business. And I'll tell you that my children have seen the worst of it. I don't necessarily hide it, but I do try to explain and just share within what I feel is safe for them to know. Like I'm like, this, my wave or whatever I'm going through is not because of you. And there was nothing that you could have done to prevent it. And it was not caused because you did something. So simple. And I just kind of tell everyone what I need. I usually just kind of need to either create, write, or something and kind of, let the feeling move through me. So, because there's always a learning. I feel like every time I go through a low wave, there's something that I come out of with, if that makes sense. So, so I just wanted to share, this is probably one of the biggest pitfalls when you start transitioning into unschooling. When you began homeschooling and you're like, okay, we're doing it. And all of a sudden you find resistance in the path because our children are not the same as us. They don't learn the same way. They are not to our same, they don't really know what our expectations are. They just know that they just know that they want to be free, and some of the things that we ask them to do are just inhibiting that freedom. So then you start finding out about self-directed education and unschooling, and all of a sudden it feels like this freedom to everyone, not just to the children, to everyone. But there's this like dramatic switch on who is making all the decisions. And it shouldn't be just the children, because that's not what they're there for per se. They're there to be supported and to be part of the decision making with us as the parents. So it's a team, it's a partnership. And sometimes there are compromises, and that's okay. It's just a work in progress. But there's always a space for equity, for everyone's needs to be met. Thank you so much for joining me. And if you want to go deeper into human design and unschooling, I'll be hosting a January program, 4 weeks to get you started. Human design and unschooling, they are experiments in the sense of like we are finding out what works for us. So it would be mad to say that in 4 weeks you will know everything there is to know and you will have all the answers that you will need. It is not true. But if you are ready to do a deep dive into conditioning and how to incorporate unschooling and human design and have your needs met as a parent, as a person, as a human being, and allow that for your children, then come join me in January. And that's it. Thank you so much for